Here's low thyroid mistake number 4. And the mistake is thinking that you've had the correct test to figure out what's causing your low thyroid. I guess I should back up for a second. Many of you probably hadn't had any test to try to figure out what's the actual cause of your low thyroid. What usually happens is you develop these low thyroid symptoms such as fatigue or depression or constipation or hair loss or a combination of those things, and you have them for a while, and you go see a doctor who runs a blood chemistry panel and say, hey, look at that. Your TSH is high. Your T4 is maybe a little low, might be normal. You're low thyroid. You need to take thyroid hormones. And so that makes sense to you because, you're not a doctor. You're not trained in those things. And so you take it. And usually there's a little bit of a hormone honeymoon, right? You feel better for a while. And that honeymoon might last a week or a couple of months. But then the honeymoon stops and those symptoms start to come back. The depression, the feeling cold, the fatigue, all those things start to come back. And you start to think, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. Or you go back and the doctor says, well, your TSH is normal. I don't know what could be causing this. Maybe you're just depressed. Well, maybe, but you're probably not. See, the problem is that you haven't had the right test. Most doctors that I have found, even if you have low thyroid symptoms, they don't ever run the test to find out if you have that autoimmune condition. Okay? Remember, the number one cause of low thyroid in America is an autoimmune condition called Hashimoto's thyroiditis or Hashimoto's hypothyroid. There's a bunch of different names for it. But what it is, it's an autoimmune problem. It means your immune system has turned on you mistakenly and is trying to kill your thyroid gland. And as it kills it, it makes you have low thyroid symptoms. Well, what I've found with the patients I've seen is most doctors aren't even running the test for that. Now, what test do they run? Well, there are two very simple blood tests. One's called TPO antibodies, and one's called TBG antibodies. And if you haven't had these tests done, we can do them. They're not like these exotic, weird tests. These test very easily. If you have elevated antibodies, it means that you've got Hashimoto's. You've got an autoimmune disease. Many doctors aren't even running these tests, so don't think that you've had the correct test. Now, that's kind of layer 1 to that answer. The second layer is, and here's the bad news, many women that get these antibody tests done have false negative results. They're what we call seronegative Hashimoto's patients. It means that even though the blood test shows, no, you don't have high antibodies, you really do have Hashimoto's. Now, there's some other testing that's a little more sophisticated, a little more complex you can do to find out if you've got that situation. Okay, now here's layer 3, right? The first layer was most doctors aren't even testing for those antibodies. If you get the antibodies done, many of you are going to have false negative, and you still are going to have Hashimoto's going on. It's just your antibodies won't be high. Now, the third answer to that question is, why did you even become this way in the first place? Now, see, there's a bunch of other tests that have to be done to answer that question, because answering that question is how you're able to help someone get to feeling good again, get rid of that depression, get rid of the hair loss, and get back to feeling the way they used to feel years ago. See, there's a bunch of things that trigger Hashimoto's, and I've got some posts on that you can read. We've got food sensitivities, we've got viral infections, parasitic infections, blood sugar problems, vitamin D deficiencies, pregnancy, heavy metal exposure. There's a bunch of factors, a lot of factors that go into whether or not you turn on that gene that gives you that Hashimoto's process. And it's vitally important. It's crucial. It's a matter of life and death really to find out, are those things going on in you right now? Because if you have a hidden GI infection, if you have a food sensitivity, if you have a viral infection, if you have a vitamin D deficiency, then it's promoting your autoimmune attack. So the fourth mistake I see is the woman assumes that she's had enough tests or she's had the correct test. And believe me, I have never met a single woman to come into my office here for my thyroid program that has had all those tests. Remember, most doctors aren't even testing to see if you have Hashimoto's. And if they do, a significant portion of you are going to have negative antibodies, but you still have it. You still have Hashimoto's. And then the third level is, you got to figure out what else is going on. You've got to figure out why it happened in the first place.